everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about sunscreen. What are the different types of sunscreen, what is actually in our sunscreens, the right sunscreen for our skin type, hopefully answering some of your questions and breaking it down so that it's really easy to understand. But let's start with the different types of sunscreen. So we know that there are physical and chemical sunscreens. Physical sunscreens are also known as mineral sunscreens, and that's because the ingredients that are in them are actually minerals. So the two ingredients that you'll find inside a physical sunscreen are zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. How does a physical sunscreen work? Well, it's in the name. So when you apply physical sunscreen to your skin, it actually works to be a physical blocker to UV radiation. So it reflects and scatters UV light off your skin and then out into the atmosphere, and it actually blocks the widest range of light. So that's everything from ultraviolet, visible and infrared light. So when we're driving in the car and we're getting the rays that penetrate glass right through to direct sun exposure when we're in the sun, all the way through to infrared. Now, chemical sunscreens, same as in the name, the ingredients that are within them are different chemicals. You'll find the best way to know if one is a physical sunscreen is that physical sunscreens will have one of those two ingredients, zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. How does a chemical sunscreen work? Well, chemical sunscreen works different to physical in the way that UV light is actually absorbed into the skin, and then the chemicals that are in that sunscreen will re-emit that light as heat. So now that we know the difference between chemical and physical sunscreens, how do we know which one is right for us? For sensitive skin, you want to opt for physical sunscreens, as the chemical ingredients can increase the risk of you having any sort of irritation or reaction to the ingredients. Keep in mind your skin may also react to physical ingredients or physical sunscreen ingredients, so best just to try that out first. Overall though, you want to look for sunscreens that have fewer ingredients, which is why physical is great, because it only contains one or both of those minerals. You want to avoid formulations that have parabens or fragrances in them, and I would also recommend avoiding prolonged sun exposure, as your skin can also react to that as well. If you've got normal combination skin, it's really up to your preference. So a physical sunscreen provides us the most protection, we know that, but typically they do also have a thicker texture and can sometimes leave that white sheen, although formulations are getting better. So perhaps it's depending. If you're going to be having direct sun exposure, choose that physical sunscreen because you know you're going to be getting the most protection. But if it's a day-to-day, underneath your makeup, on top of your skincare, perhaps a chemical formulation will be better for you. If you have acne prone or oily skin, there are sunscreen formulations for you as well. So you want to opt for a sunscreen that combines both physical and chemical ingredients. You want to choose mattifying formulas that are going to absorb any excess oil and not leave your face looking shiny, and try to avoid natural sunscreens. Today I also want to answer any of your questions around what broad spectrum means, what is UVA, what is UVB, and why those things are important. So when you see broad spectrum on your sunscreen, it means that it's protecting you across the entire spectrum of UV light. So UVA, UVB, all of the ultraviolet radiation that we are exposed to. What do those stand for? So UVA is ultraviolet aging. So those are the rays that are actually going to cause those aging effects on our skin. UVB stands for ultraviolet burning. So that's the rays that are going to cause our skin to burn. When you're choosing a sunscreen, make sure it's got broad spectrum on it. That way you know that you're being protected against the broad spectrum or the whole spectrum of UV light. Why is wearing sunscreen so important throughout our entire life? So starting young with our kids and for ourselves during our teen and 20s and then into our more mature years. Well, we don't actually see the effects of sun exposure until our third decade. So when we get into our 30s, we start to develop the fine lines and wrinkles. We start to see the pigmentation. We even start to develop any of those cancerous cells which can lead to melanoma as a result of direct sun exposure or unprotected sun exposure. So when we think about spending all this money on skincare and treatments to help prevent the signs of aging, if we knew that it was just to avoid getting burnt, being in the sun unprotected, think of how much money we could save. Think of our beauty. I'm going to end with when we apply sunscreen. Where does it come in our skincare routine? Well, sunscreen is the last step in your skincare routine in the morning. So once you've cleansed, moisturized, you then will apply your sunscreen. You want to apply sunscreen at least 15 minutes before sun exposure, and you want to be reapplying at least every 2 hours throughout the day. If you're someone who's thinking, oh, I'm not going into the sun today, I'm just working in the office, think of all the indirect sunlight that you're getting, and then think of that broad spectrum of light. So we know that UV radiation can actually penetrate glass. So if you're in an office and your desk is next to the glass, UV light is coming through that and still causing sun damage. While you're driving, while you're walking to get lunch, all of this throughout our day, we're being exposed to sunlight, and we know that that can still cause damage no matter how long we are in the sun. So it's not just for those who are planning on actually being in direct sun exposure for prolonged periods of time. It's all the little activities that add up over a period of time and still can cause damage. Keep in mind that moisturizers with SPF in them, makeup with SPF in them, they are not enough protection. If a product's sole purpose is not to be a sunscreen, it's just an added ingredient, it's not enough protection. We're looking for a sunscreen that says broad spectrum. We want it to be approved in Australia for Australian sun exposure. So you're looking for your products to have AUST-L, which means that it's been approved by the Therapeutic Goods of Australia to actually help protect us against the UV exposure that we get here in Australia. Alright everyone, I hope that you found this video helpful. I hope you learned something today. Perhaps you're now a sunscreen wearing ambassador like I am. If you like this video, please give it a like, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.